I'm Zachary Cartwright. This is Water in Food.
Well, there's no value-added manufacturing really in Hawaii. There's not really a lot of places that you could take your product to and then they would manufacture it for you. What's the level amount that you need to know to stay in this kind of safe zone? So really having our own labs and our own systems is really important.
Today I'm joined by Brynn Foster, founder of Voyaging Foods based in Hawaii. Brynn founded her gluten-free artisan milling company in 2005 and does it all, from farming to distribution to studying and applying food science principles like water activity. Let's learn about Brynn's company and her desire to make indigenous plant products more accessible on Water in Food. Thank you, the listener, for tuning in. We really appreciate your continued support. And I'm excited to share with you a new guest. Today we're joined by Brynn Foster from Hawaii. So why don't you say hi, Brynn? How are things going?
Aloha. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, of course. And what island are you on?
I'm on Oahu. I'm on the north shore of Oahu where you would see a lot of the big waves and, probably watching a lot of those surf contests and wishing you were there. Or a lot of people always say, oh, I wish I was there. It looks so amazing. It's, you don't need a filter over here on the north shore.
Yeah, I've only been to Maui, and it was probably a long time ago, but it's beautiful over there. Are you from Hawaii?
My family's from Hawaii, so we have generations back from Maui and the Big Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was brought up in Southern California, and then as soon as I could move over to Hawaii after I graduated college, I took the chance and really wanted to get into, what self-sustainability really was and what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Hawaii is a pretty good example of that, being in the middle of the ocean.
And what did you study in college? Is this related to your business now?
I studied public relations and had a minor in business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it definitely helped kind of prepare me for some of the things that I do in my business now, definitely with publicity and communications and getting, your branding story correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then making, relationships with all the different media outlets and people. I think it definitely had a huge impact. But I think I went to school also in Italy and France, and that's where I really got this sustainability, component to this making a business out of it. I just really love the idea of you went to the market every day for your food. You didn't just go to Costco and stock up for a month on things. You really had more of this connection to farms and the land and what was fresh that day and heirloom, handmade, homemade products. So I feel like that was really more about a schooling than anything.
Mm-hmm. And when did you found Voyaging Foods, and where does that name come from?
I founded Voyaging Foods in 2005 when my son was born. Well, it was the idea. I sort of was percolating the idea around then, but it really didn't come to fruition for a few years after that. Because I was so involved in raising my baby. And the name actually came several years. I would say like 7 years after that. So I was kind of had this baby but didn't name it. And I mean, the business is the baby. Voyaging Foods is a term that the Polynesians use for a handful of a category or collection of plants that they brought on their open ocean voyaging canoes that they sailed throughout the Pacific Triangle. And they brought with them a specific set of plants that would be everything they need for medicine, for their food, for building homes, for spiritual uses. So these plants were really kind of like the emergency kit of the Polynesian archipelago. So it's very, they're like what you would bring if you're, deserted on a isolated island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
And if I understand this correctly, it's your goal to bring these foods and make them available to more people. Is that correct?
It is. I really want to create access and availability for these foods that are kind of considered more novelty or niche.
Mm-hmm.
You probably wouldn't try taro or poi unless you were at a luau in Hawaii or Tahiti. But in actuality, taro and poi is something that we consider a very important food give to our babies as a first food because it's so high in fiber, and it's one of the most hypoallergenic foods in the world due to its small starch granule size. So there's a lot of benefits that a lot of people don't know about with these canoe plants because they're underutilized. So they're there's something called the arc of taste in slow foods. And so these are considered the arc of taste, which is like the red list for animals, where it's can become extinct really easily if we don't protect biodiversity within the plant.
Mm-hmm. And where else are these plants being grown?
I think in Florida, taro is considered a weed, I think in Florida, because it is pretty easy to grow. But a lot of places where there's swamplands, I even saw a lot of taro in Napa and around a lake. So wherever there's I think they kind of consider it like a swampy kind of plant, but it can be grown either dryland or wetland. But it's grown a lot in Southeast Asia. It's grown in Africa. So these plants are mostly tropical, so wherever there's tropical environment.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you're producing in a lot of rural areas. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the difficulties or the challenges associated with that.
Well, we're producing meaning manufacturing or growing?
Yeah, both. Are these both being done rurally, or do you have kind of a combination?
We want to promote the regional decentralized manufacturing. So that's how I came to, meet you all, because we want to promote rural farming and manufacturing rather than having to, especially in Hawaii, there's maybe two places that, there's no value added manufacturing really in Hawaii. There's not really a lot of places that you could take your products to and then they would manufacture it for you. So there's either, you have to drive, if you're a farmer and you live 40 miles out of town, on these windy rural roads, you're not going to want to drive into town to bring in your 50 pounds of taro to make a flour.
Right.
It's just worth it. So we really want to promote more regional decentralized manufacturing hubs that farmers can really be a part of the equation, and not getting the lesser amount of the farmer share of the dollar, which is normally like 14 cents. The farmers usually get about 14 cents.
Wow.
The share for the dollar.
How many farmers are you working with right now?
Wow, we're working with a lot. We work with people indirectly. Like we were working with the Hawaii Blue Cooperative on the Big Island, and they have, they're increasing all the time, but they have hundreds and hundreds of acres that they work with. So we kind of think of it in acres. And we work with small family farmers. So for us, like 10 acres is big in Hawaii, because a lot of the small family farms, we're lucky to have like one acre or 2 acres. So, right now in commercial production for taro growing, there's only 300 acres in the whole island that are in commercial production. So one of our goals is to double that with canoe plants. So we want to see co-planting and, some food forests and permaculture, things that incorporate more of co-planting and utilizing other plants, so it's not just monocropping. So we hope to, really double that number and also increase food production. We want to double our food production. Right now we're importing 100% of our flour and 80% of all of our food in Hawaii, which is just,
Wow.
really scary. And so really having our own labs and our own systems is really important in these regional areas. So yeah, we're working with, we want to at least increase our, acreage. We want to see thousands of acres in production, but that's one of our benchmarks.
And when are you hoping to hit that benchmark? Is this a 2021 goal? Is this a 2025 goal? And what are the steps that it's going to take to reach that goal?
Oh, those are good questions. So the department, the Hawaii's governor has there's something called the Aloha Promise, which is based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We are working on, sustainable cities, and we want to double our food production by 2035, but we want to make that quicker to 2030.
Mhm.
And we want to focus on the starch component, which is, these flowers, these plants that we're making into flowers. And so we really want to see us, bumping that up to 2030. And we're even thinking that we could increase the doubling our food production because we only produce like 20% of our total food. So doubling it will get 40%. But we think with the starch addition, which, gets super into the weeds here, but we think we can do a lot better
Mhm.
we want to do it by 2025. But I don't know if I just claim that on publicly. I think, 2030 is our goal, is the big goal, but I think we can do it quicker by 2025.
I know that.
Sorry. I was going to answer the other question of what needs to happen really quick is just build these micro units of manufacturing all around the islands, and that's what we're working on. And that's why the water meter is so important.
Yeah, why don't you touch on that? How are you using a water meter, and what's the process like? Are you using this in rural sites? Are you just using this on finished products? How are you using a water meter?
We're using we're using the water meter in rural sites so that farmers can understand, what their R&D looks like, at what level they need to be food, for the food safety protocols, for the, good manufacturing practices, all the standard operating procedures. These are terms farmers don't really need to deal with, but when you get into value-added manufacturing and taking, a raw product into a dried, which everybody wants to dehydrate right now, from banana chips to flour to whatever it is, what's the level amount that you need to know to stay in this kind of safe zone? And that's where we're wanting to use more of these meters to give to the farmers as this is part of your toolkit to be, autonomous and kind of your own boss, so that you don't have to drive in and ship things in, but you can actually have a solar dehydrator on your farm and
Mhm.
then use the water meter when you see that, okay, it's been this temperature for 7 hours. It should be at our level. And it's a way for them to be transparent in their manufacturing. And then when you log it, then you'll be able to just have this transparency log to give to stores or farmers markets or whatever it is, because the regulatory industry in Hawaii is really difficult for small farmers. You just think that you can't, how are you going to figure any of this stuff out? So I think that's where these micro units of dehydrating and milling, and then offering the water meters with it as part of the process.
Mhm.
And part of this guidebook is really going to take our value added and our farmers to a whole nother level.
And can you talk a little bit about your journey about learning about water activity and how you started to apply it to your work? When did you have your aha moment and realize that collecting water activity was important to your process?
Well, we were hearing about FSMA for a long time, and it was kind of this big, scary FSMA. Oh my gosh, you need, it's great that you want to make all these fun little cookies and things and sell them to, the farmers market. But, we got approached to sell to Whole Foods, and we've been, we were the first company to sell taro powder into Whole Foods with some, packaged consumer goods as well. And, they really kind of bumped us up into this like fun kind of hobby level to, having to know what all of these food safety HACCP. There wasn't HACCP when I started, but then when we, thank God, because I probably wouldn't have wanted to go into the stores. But we had to, Whole Foods was kind of the one that really pushed us into going into, acting like a big company when we really are still small, but we had to think big. And that's where we started to have to understand what food safety was. So I enrolled in the HACCP class, which a lot of people were saying, well, as a small company, you really don't need to because there's a threshold. But I think knowledge is power, and I really I want to, be small but think big. And so I, joined the HACCP classes. I joined every kind of class and learning that I could because I love learning. And then I even took it further. And since I enjoy farming, I was part of an accelerator program called it was for food safety. So I understood from the farming aspect, and then I understood from the kitchen manufacturing aspect. So I kind of had it all down the whole line of what was expected for transparency and good agricultural, good manufacturing practices. And I kind of understand now what they're looking for and
Mhm.
how to be transparent about it. And water activity was part of, the microbial and understanding like water. Now I'm thankful for your videos because I was saying water, the other was water activity and water retention. I think it was,
Yeah, probably water activity and moisture content.
yes, I was saying moisture content all the time until I, really understood it from your videos.
Mhm.
That's when I really kind of started to click because sometimes when you're just trying to, follow this path stuff and you're trying to follow what you're supposed to do, it doesn't always click.
Mhm.
So really kind of, I feel like there's like a little mini university that you guys are offering. And it really started to click when I watched your videos because I was sort of just like, okay, yes, we're doing this. Yes, we're doing that for all of what we need to do. But I wasn't really understanding it and getting into the science.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that those have been helpful to you. And I think a lot of people in your shoes and a lot of people in the food industry, they do know a lot about moisture content. It's a concept that sometimes makes more sense. But water activity can add a lot of insights on safety and quality. And it seems that that's what you are now using it for. Would you say that having that water activity information allows you to work as an independent lab instead of maybe relying on someone else to get you the data?
I think so. I mean, if I would have known you guys 10 years ago, I mean, I started in 2005 and 6,
Hmm.
and now it's 2020. I was sending samples to labs all over the nation for 10 years. I would say a good 10 years. And it was thousands and thousands of dollars and a lot of waiting, a lot of time, and shelf life, these sort of things. And it was a real big barrier, especially for Hawaii businesses when we're so rurally located. And
Hmm.
there isn't a lot of labs we can work with here. But not just that, I just feel like that's a cost that food companies and food manufacturers, sometimes they might not, have the money to do that, or they feel maybe they can skimp on that. I don't know. But having to be able to operate as your own lab, but to understand these things and then to pass on this knowledge is really, I think, really important as, because now we know, okay, if we dry a little longer or if we do this, we tweak this, it's just so helpful. And I can't wait to, invest in the shelf life and just everything you guys have. I mean, I'm excited, like, and new kind of hobby buying, all the water meters, but shelf life.
Getting your own little collection started. But you're right, water activity goes beyond just a single measurement. If you create an isotherm, you can look at shelf life and you can look at packaging and you can understand temperature. So these are all things that are important to your process and things that we can assist you with in the future. One thing I wanted to also ask you about was your production of breadfruit flour. I understand this is one of your biggest projects, and I was wondering if you could tell us about maybe phase one and phase two and where that's going.
Sure. Yeah, we got a grant in collaboration with the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, and so we co-launched a program called the 30 by 30 Initiative, which is similar to what I was talking about with doubling our food production. We want to replace 30% of the incoming flour that's imported into the state with our canoe plant flour. So whether it's ulu, breadfruit, taro, and asking, whether it's restaurants or home bakers, when you're using flour, just cut it with 30%. And that, it's kind of like when you're trying to use brown rice, you'll start like adding a little brown rice to your white rice. And then eventually you're just going to go all brown rice because you start to, get that taste for it. So we launched this initiative, and we just launched it actually a few months ago. We did a huge surveying a lot of the population in Hawaii about flour, what they know about, these new plant flours. It's a gluten-free flour. So we're hoping, I think they're going to process 30,000 pounds of breadfruit, and then we're going to take a percentage and make flour out of it. So we'll have a few thousand pounds of flour, which has never been done in Hawaii at that scale. So it's really the largest commercial scale production of breadfruit flour, I want to say in the United States.
Mhm.
So they're a cooperative, so they have all the family farmers, and they also have a large facility. They've got, the structure that you need to do something like this. So we've got, great giving them the money to actually buy the machines, buy the dehydrators, buy the mills, because they have the infrastructure, and then they will be kind of the hub that we can create, a value added manufacturer. And then, so we're working on the marketing part of it, where we're going to market and sell some of the smaller packages for home users under 5 pounds, and then they're going to take the larger processors. They're going to use 10 pounds to 25 pounds, which could be the restaurants, and just getting it pushed out that way. Right now in Hawaii, we have the largest. Well, I guess there's over 900 companies that have been shut down permanently because of COVID, and a lot of those are restaurants, and the hotels are. Some of them, the restaurants and the hotels are shut down. So the larger bulk of this flour will be, probably a smaller. It'll take a while for that market to come back. So we're really going to focus on our, homemakers and our smaller kind of bakeries and stores. So that's what this project is, and we're really excited about it. We really want to promote selling this and getting our community to eat it first, and then we'll second phase be able to kind of ship it out around the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully too. But we believe the Hawaiian breadfruit is, it tastes different. Hawaiian soil, the volcanic soil is amazing, and we want to, build more of these value-added manufacturing systems where we understand how to be food sovereign, because we also have control over our labs with water activity and food safety. So we're not just being kind of these like backyard programs, but we actually have global, we could play globally because we know what our parameters are, and they'll be farmer controlled, which I think a lot of the flour, say breadfruit flour and things like that, not globally, are, the small farmers are growing it, but I don't think sometimes they get to control a lot of it. They probably have to send it off to labs and things, and I don't know if they have things like this that give them they can operate on their own, which is really important for island nations to be able to operate on their own with their own tools for sustainability.
And how can somebody listening to this podcast find your products? I know you mentioned Whole Foods earlier, but do you have a website, or what other ways can people find these indigenous plants or these indigenous products?
We are online right now under voyagingfoods.com, and the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, which is also selling the flour as well. We hope to be, right now we're in Hawaii because of what we're importing 80% of our food and 100% of our flour. So we're working on direct to consumer in Hawaii right now. And we really just, I have a lot of mentors in this industry. General Mills was one of them. Bob's Bread Mill was one of them. And they gave me some really great advice. And they said, just really be great regionally and just, focus regionally. And that's where all of the success stories happen. Don't always try and be globally and nationally and be in every store. So I'm really taking that to heart, and I think that's where our success story is just, being really focused on our region, and I think we're doing that. So for now, it's online until you come to Hawaii. But I think there's a lot of companies that are also wanting to, buy the ingredient and then make their own baked goods out of it, which we're very, excited for that too, because we want to create more access and availability. And this provides that with the shelf life, a year or more shelf life, so we can extend our harvest. So we're excited, and we'll probably be in more, online. We were working on being on Hawaiian Airlines before COVID, So
Hmm.
there's a lot of, big opportunities. We're excited to, work on feeding our community right now. And there's a lot of people here. So we've got our work cut out for us on top of the tourists when they do start to come back. Um, we have enough here right now.
Well, I really like that mentality of just kind of focusing regionally or focus on what you're doing and then go from there. I think that is going to lead to a lot of success for you. I have one last question. I have a lot of respect for you because you wear a lot of different hats. You're not just a founder, you're a farmer, you're a manager. You look at the distribution of your products. You've trained yourself to be a food scientist on some level. So somebody listening to this podcast who's in a similar situation, or someone who may be like a 2005 version of you just getting started, what advice would you give to that person?
I would advise them to, find a mentor. I was always looking for mentors. That's why I went to Bob's Red Mill and I talked to him and he walked me around his facility and I saw his mills and I, saw everything he was doing and he gave me such great advice and he was reachable. And, talking to the guys at General Mills, they've just come so far, with all of their regenerative focus. So I think, always look for the mentor, look for the people that are doing things that you want to do or that you like to do. And then do them on your scale and don't worry about being small, because the people that are really, good at, they'll find you or you'll find them, because, you both kind of will attract each other is how I
Hmm.
feel, and how I've always been able to operate as well. Is the people that are supposed to be with me, are, and the ones I'm supposed to meet, I always do. It's, I think that law of attraction sort of thing,
Hmm.
being focused and being, and, focusing. Because when I started, I was like, I had all these different products and I was trying to do this and do that. But I think focusing and not thinking that you have to do so many things, having so many products, but even if you come out with one and you do really good with that one, and you keep your inventory really tight. I think keeping inventory tight for whatever you're doing is like the biggest advice I would have. And then finding, the people that you really want to work with or admire, and being a part of, listening to whatever they're doing, and then trying to work with them too. I'm always looking for people I can mentor, and because I always wanted one. So call me.
Well, I admire your persistence, and I'm really excited to watch your company grow. And I hope to have you back sometime. Maybe we can check in sometime in 2021 and see what's going on and see how your company continues to grow. So I just want to thank you again, Brynn, for being on Water and Food. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Aloha.
I'm Zachary Cartwright. This is Water and Food. Find this podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.